Hey y'all, it is Nikki, and today is the day. It's going to be a good one. For the past year or so, I've been kind of avoiding this topic mostly because I was embarrassed. And that topic is my first escapade with self-publishing, being published and then not really being published, and being on YouTube and not really being on YouTube. I recently received a suggestion for a video. Someone wanted to know kind of where I started as a writer, where I was, and how I've grown since then, and where I am now, and where I hope to be in the future. And I thought the best way to approach that would be to start from the beginning, explain what went down with that whole self-publishing adventure, and to not hide from it anymore. Spoiler alert, it was kind of a fail, and for that reason, I felt kind of weird about dropping my super happy intro into this video. But I think that comes from the mistaken idea that I am like the only person who has made the mistakes I have made. I'm over that, and God is way too good to not drop in my super happy intro. As a lot of you know, I initially started this channel to promote my self-published young adult fantasy novel. Sorry, hybrid published young adult fantasy novel. So I figured out from a super young age that I loved writing stories. That was my jam. It was the thing that I always gravitated towards. And I was really thankful for that because, I mean, not everybody figures out so soon what they love doing. So I thought it was a huge blessing that from a young age I knew that this is what I wanted to do. I started and didn't finish a few stories. I started and finished one. But the one that some of you may know as The Heir of Ariad was sort of the first story that I tackled seriously, with a serious intent to see it all the way through and to potentially go somewhere with it. It wasn't just a story about warrior mermaids trying to stop an undersea battle. It was meaningful. It had a real message behind it. I really wanted to glorify God in it. So it took me years and years. Like, I wrote it and rewrote it and rewrote it and rewrote it. By the time I was in high school, I had it at a place where I was actually pretty happy with it. I thought it was finished. So I started looking into publishing options. I narrowed down my search to one Canadian company up here and then one American company. I was praying about it a lot. I really wanted the Lord to be in that decision. I really felt like He wanted me using this gift. So I had my family praying. I entered a contest for the Canadian company, didn't win, obviously. In the end, I just really felt like I was being led to this American company. I was in communication with them, getting really good vibes from them, and my family was all in agreement that that was the right course to take. I really did want to glorify God in this story, but I also feel like I need to acknowledge the fact that, yes, I also wanted the book to be a success. I am a person, human. I didn't want it to be a failure. I wanted people to like the book. So I signed the agreement, we went for it, and honestly, the publishing process went probably about as smoothly as it could be expected to go. I didn't do a lot of research in advance. Even when I was looking for my publishing companies, I had a very rudimentary understanding of, say, the difference between self-publishing and traditional publishing. The company that I went with in the end was actually a hybrid publisher, and I didn't really have a super solid grasp on everything that entails. So as the publishing process was rolling along, which is a very stressful process if anybody has experienced it, I was just sort of rolling with things because I didn't know what to expect. I just assumed that, okay, this is the way it is, this is the way it has to be. The company was good, they did their job. I just wish that I had known more at the time so that I was more prepared and so that I would have a better idea of what actually goes into this process. Like I said, it was hybrid publishing, which means, like self-publishing, that marketing is on me. Like, the vast majority of the marketing was on me. They were going to do a few things, which is awesome, but the rest of it was my responsibility to promote my book Baby, which is totally reasonable. But again, that was something that I wasn't really prepared for. I had specifically gone with this company because I sort of misunderstood the marketing help that they were going to offer me. So in order to market this book, I basically threw myself into all these things that I had never ever been involved in before. Social media, I started with Facebook and Instagram and Twitter all at once. I started a blog, and I really wasn't comfortable with it, and I was just completely overwhelmed. Like, I mean, think about it. You have this chronic hermit level introvert now trying to just launch onto social media, rapid fire promote something when you're starting from scratch. It was just a super overwhelming and frightening process, and because of that, I didn't take full advantage of the marketing education that the publisher I was working with was actually offering. So I could have got a lot of great information from them, but I was just so overwhelmed by all the things that I should be doing but wasn't doing, all the things that everybody said I had to be doing and I just couldn't handle right then, that I just like shut down. So I did a few things here and there. I tried to keep social media going. I kept up my blog. But other than that, I really just like hid from the entire marketing process because it was just so daunting for me and I just couldn't handle it. I was in high school, probably 16 or 17 at the time. Are 17-year-olds perfectly capable of handling all this? Absolutely. Kudos to the ones who are. But for myself at the time, it was not a good scene. So I was basically just like a giant ball of nerves and stress for like months and months. And on top of that, I'm not going to get too much into this, but there were also some health issues going on at the same time. They were basically just draining whatever energy I had left. And on top of that, you have this extra pressure to get book 2 out. The Heir of Ariad was the first in a series that I was planning. So while you're dealing with all of this, trying to get book 1 out, there's this pressure of like, oh my goodness, you need to be writing book 2, you need to have it done, you need to get book 2 out. So it released in the summer. I had a launch party, which honestly was such a blessing. Like such a blessing. I was incredibly nervous about it. Hermit level introvert again, but God just used that to remind me that I am so blessed, even amidst the stress. It was just a really beautiful day, guys. I highly recommend if you ever publish a book, do not skip the book launch because it can be just so rewarding. Then after your book has released, you've spent all this time frantically trying to build sort of a pre-release buzz around your book, but now you have to keep the momentum going. How do you do that? I was still doing social media and the blog. The thing was, I wasn't totally comfortable with being raw and real, which I think shows. Like, if you're not being totally transparent, especially with things like blogs, people can tell and it won't feel as impactful or sincere. Honestly, thank the Lord, I have come a long way in that regard. I'm still not like spilling all my guts, but I actually really love the blog and I enjoy sharing more of myself and of my own personal struggles, and that's a journey that God is bringing me on, and I'm sure I still have a long way to go, but that is definitely one thing that I'm thanking God for. So amidst all of this happening, you're trying to keep momentum going, you're trying to write book 2, basically just stress after stress after stress, which is normal when you're publishing, but again, I didn't know that. I wasn't necessarily prepared for that. I had done so little research and really just had no idea what I was doing. Please do not make that mistake. Do the research. I'm trying to market, but I'm scared of marketing, so you're kind of like hiding from it and pulling back from it, but then your book doesn't do as well, so then you just feel like a failure because your book isn't working. Just a mess. And honestly, it all came to the point where I just felt like I completely shot my chance. Like, that was my one chance to like be a writer, be an author. Now it's done. Even if I wanted to try traditional publishing, no one will take me seriously or even consider me because of that flop, which could be true, but that's out of my hands. Because I think the thing is, all along, I was like giving it to God. Lord, you take this, glorify your name in this is yours, with my mouth, and I wanted it to be from the heart, but I think there was a good chunk of me that was also holding it back and just really, really desperate for it to be successful and not fully surrendering. And like, I'm not gonna lie, many times I have looked back and just thought, God, I thought I was doing the right thing. I thought you told me to do this. It could be a little bit demoralizing and a little bit confusing because I really did feel like we prayed, we sought your will in this. I thought this was the right direction to go, but I need to take responsibility for my role. Like, for one thing, I rushed and I didn't do the right research, but also it took getting some distance and some time apart from it to get the perspective that, wait, he was still involved in that entire process and the story isn't over. It reminds me of The Chosen, specifically the character Nathaniel. If you have not seen The Chosen, I will drop the link in the description below. It is an incredible multi-season TV show about the life of Christ, and before you turn your nose up because, Jesus, no. Take everything you know about Christian media, chuck it in the garbage, because this is next level. Highly recommend, also completely free, so what do you have to lose? Minor spoilers ahead. There is an episode in season 2 where Nathaniel, who is an architect with big dreams, has literally just watched like all his dreams just like crumble in front of him. And when I say literally, I mean literally. There's this moment where he's just sitting under a fig tree, crying out to God, I did this for you. I did all of this for you. I wanted to glorify you. why isn't this working? Why is this a total failure? Watching that was like, oh, like I got it. I felt the pain because that's exactly what I was feeling. I was so sure all along that this is what I was supposed to be doing, and then it was just a total nightmare, like a nightmare from beginning to end. And I'm not sure I would have said that at the time, but now in hindsight, just remembering what it was like being in that process and just how underprepared I was for it, would not want to relive that. What made it worse was that almost immediately after the book came out, there were regrets. In the months that followed, as I'm still trying to promote the book, I did a lot of reading and, developed some of my skills more, and you come to the point where you realize, wow, not only do I kind of wish I hadn't spent that much money on the publishing process, which, side note, I'm not going to tell you how much money I spent on it, but just take my word for it that it was a lot and probably way too much. My transparency has limits, so give me this, guys. Not only did I regret, all that money that went into it, but I started to realize that I'm not even 100% content with the book that I put out there. You start to think, wow, if I hadn't rushed it, if I'd given it more time, given myself more time to hone my craft, it could have been better. And so that was just like an extra gut punch that I didn't need. That sickening realization that, like, wait, is this not even my best work? And you've put this thing out there and now it's out there and you can't pull it back. But then I thought, this was almost a year later, that, hey, you know what? Maybe that's not the end of the story. Maybe I can still query it because the book was still fully mine, the rights were mine. So I thought I would try querying, and that really did feel like a second chance. It kind of gave me a second wind. I started working on the story, revamping, beefing it up, and that is still what I'm in the process of doing. This story has come a long way even from that draft. That's what I'm in the process of working on, is taking this story that was good. I want to clarify that. This sounds like I'm bashing the original book, but it's still out there. You can go out and buy it if you want. It's a solid story. It really is. It's solid, it's meaningful. The world I love, the characters I love, and God was in it. He gave me that story. He helped me to write it. It's just that I know that I rushed. I know that I wasn't fully prepared for it. And that if I had taken more time to prepare, it could have been even more complex and intricate, even in the messaging, I'm realizing now, than it was then. It's just that idea that I want to do everything to the best of my ability. And yes, I am a bit of a perfectionist, but it's also biblical to do everything as unto the Lord, to give everything our best. So it's a good story. And the story that is in that original self-published novel is very much still the beating heart of that whole series and that whole saga that I'm still working on today. But a story needs more than just a heart. Like, it needs like muscles and skin and veins and bones and all those things that make it complex and alive. And that is what I'm working on today. And that's a good place to end for part 1 of this saga, because I want to finish with a happy note. This is not supposed to be a downer. This is supposed to show you guys, if you are in the same position that I am in, that it's a messy journey. And keyword, it is a journey. It's a process. You're not necessarily going to get it right the first time. I'm sure some people have. If I ever thought that I would be one of those special people, I now realize that I'm not, and I'm becoming more and more okay with that. There is more to the story. I will get to that in part 2. But for now, I think that this is a good place to end. I feel very blessed that I'm even comfortable enough to finally share that first part of the story. Because you know what? It wasn't perfect. It was a bit of a flop. And I'm still alive. Nobody spontaneously combusted. Failure happens, and God is still good. I hope you enjoyed this video, guys. Thank you so much for watching. Make sure to stay tuned for part 2, which I will try to get out as soon as possible. Feel free to like and subscribe or comment any thoughts that you might have. And as always, do not forget to spend some time in the clouds today.